Desde Las Vegas, Nevada, iniciamos con el programa Hablando de Bienes y Raíces con Castillo y sus invitados. Comenzamos.
Muy buenos días, Las Vegas, ¿cómo están? Yo soy Castillo, estamos comenzando este programa de Hablando de Bienes Raíces. Hoy día tenemos realmente una persona que está aquí con nosotros y el programa de hoy va a ser en inglés, así que vamos a cambiar el canal. Voy a comenzar a hablar en inglés. So, good morning, Las Vegas. This is Castillo, and I'm here in the studio from Drake's title office. We're starting our program, Hablando de Bienes Raíces, and today we have a special guest. I actually took the opportunity to, talk to this guest. I think he's a really, really great, very smart real estate agent, and we're gonna talk today a couple of topics that's happening here in Vegas. We're actually gonna do it in English, just so like that you guys know, but I'm gonna go ahead and transcribe it so you guys know exactly what we're talking about later on. But today I have here in studio Mr. Rudy Romano. Rudy, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good. Thank you very much for having me in.
Not a problem, Rudy. So again, Rudy, if you want to go ahead and give me your background, let me know how many years you've been in the industry. You know how long you've been working here in Vegas and everything. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah. So, education-wise, I've got an accounting degree, finance degree, and a master's in finance. Been out in Vegas from New York. If you can't hear from the accent, I've been out in Vegas since '98. I cut my teeth working finance for a lot of the major builders here in town, a lot of the national builders, doing a lot of their land development and their feasibility studies for buying property, some of them pretty large pieces as well. Largest piece was about 1,800 acres.
Okay.
Then I got my resale license in 2008, 2009, and worked for the FDIC for a little bit, doing bank takebacks, and do a lot of commercial and residential real estate since then. So it's I've got a varied background, and I'm just trying to keep it interesting.
No, that's great. No. That's really awesome, Rudy. And the reason why I invited you was because a couple of weeks ago I saw this article in the Review Journal, which I'm going to go ahead and put here, which now this is the follow-up, which talks about the Badlands fiasco, right? And the Badlands golf course. I know it's something that's been going on with that golf course for a while, but I believe, Rudy, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if you're not living in there or if you're not involved with that, not a lot of people really know what's happening there. And it could affect a bunch of people if we don't understand what's happening or we don't get the gist of, how this problem became. So can you give us a little bit of background on, Badlands Golf Course and what is the issue that's happening with it?
Yeah, and I'll also comment about the public sentiment around, because that's a good point.
Yes.
So Badlands 2015, about the golf course stopped operations, and the landowner put plans forth at the city for development of the approximately 250 acres that are there.
Okay, so hold on, let me see if I understand this. So the owner came in and bought the community, and the golf course was part of it, or
No, it was
the
just
golf
the golf
course?
course.
It was just the golf course.
Just the golf course.
Okay, and then the golf course just stopped, being a golf course in 2015.
Correct. They shuttered. They shuttered the operations for golf, and put forth some plans to be approved by the city. The property itself was divided into several different parcels. Put forward one parcel, ended up getting it approved. Long story short, after a public outcry from homeowners within Badlands, the city turned around and kind of pulled back their approvals. In essence.
Okay.
And what ended up happening in the last year was that the claim by the golf course owner, the property owner, was that the city did what's called inverse condemnation. Basically, stripped the property owner of the use of his property without doing an eminent domain procedure.
Okay, so in real estate, if the city or the government wants to use your land, or they need to use your land, take your land, they need to use eminent domain process. And in this scenario, they did not do it.
Correct. And but to make matters worse, they had already approved the plans. So that they didn't just renege. By reneging, they rendered his property to be useless.
Oh, wow.
Because think about it. He was working. So the plans that he put forth were in the land use and zoning requirements.
Correct.
So it wasn't like he was going outside of those requirements asking for permission.
Right.
The property was actually zoned and planned for being developed.
Right.
When the city comes in and says no, that's when they get into trouble, because they have to have there's got to be a really good reason why you would make a change. You know, you may have a mistake. We have some development. It's an infill piece. Okay, but they didn't do that. They actually approved it and then came back and reneged on the approval.
Wow.
And it went all the way to the Supreme Court with the one parcel. And in essence, it's about $1 million a parcel, an acre, plus legal fees.
And last time you and I were talking on the phone and you were telling me this, which blew my mind, how big is the piece of land that we're talking about per acre? I mean, how many acres?
Well, approximately 250 acres in total.
So you're telling me that the Supreme Court said, you know what, you're going to go ahead and get paid $1 million per acre
on a small portion, on a portion of the 250. So it's estimated that ruling would transfer to each of the other out parcels as well.
Wow.
So there was an article just in the paper on the 8th that the city put on the books, I believe $60 million. They've already put that on there and recognized that. But the estimate is about $500 million in total.
Wow.
But let's just, and you and I, we talked about this before, which is, you know, I don't want to focus on $500 million. No. Because at the end of the day, we know the number is going to be huge.
Yes, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If the number is not 500 and it's 400, what's 100 million amongst friends, right?
Exactly, yeah, no. But the reason why this was brought up, because last time, like I said, I was looking at the article in the Review Journal. I think that was the article that we were talking about that said, oh, you know, Badlands Golf Course is going to cost the, you know, taxpayers here in Las Vegas X amount of dollars per play because, you know, it wasn't done correctly. And then you and I started talking and you gave me this whole background. I was like, oh my goodness. So now that you're giving us the background of what happened, how the city did not do the things correctly to be able to go ahead and reclaim that land, the owner still has ownership of the property, right?
Correct.
Okay. And he could still come and develop the property. Well, I mean, obviously he's going through the court process, but at one point he's going to have the right to develop the property however he wants to, as long as the city approves it again, right?
Obviously, it's got to conform to whatever the planning and the zoning for those parcels are.
Right.
Being that the original plan that he put forth conformed, as long as he doesn't deviate from what he originally put forth, there would be no reason why all of a sudden the other out parcels would be denied approval. Okay. You know, like I said, he's not going. The issue here was that he wasn't going outside what the planning and the zoning were for that property.
Correct. Correct.
So as long as he's doing what he's supposed to do for that planning and zoning for that property, there should be no issues.
Right. Okay. And the reason why we're talking about this, and again, you know, we switched the whole program. We usually do this in Spanish, but we're doing it in English, is because the public outside of Badlands have no idea this happening. And the other thing is that you and I talked about, and I think that, you know, having your expertise give us a little bit of background is, you know, you and I we're having a conversation about deed restrictions, right? And a lot of people don't ever read the CC&Rs, you know, and let's be honest, 95% of the agents or the buyers don't read the CC&Rs, and there's a lot of great information in that in the packet.
So the first part about public sentiment, right? Obviously, homeowners within that community, they have a vested interest, right?
Of course.
Especially those that may back up to any future development.
Correct.
Right? Okay. The issue that you have is what's the public sentiment outside of Badlands, so outside of Queensridge.
Right.
And you have a lot of people that don't play golf. I mean, let's just put it the way it is, which is you've got those that have property there and those that actually play golf. And so what happens is that when you start putting these price tags, you know, like I said, that one article, it was approximately $6 million just spent by the city and outside legal counsel to date. So it's a lot of money. As taxpayers, we pay these things. Every time that someone wants the city to come in and do something, it costs money. Well, taxpayers pay that. Not just the taxpayers that live in Queensbridge, but those that are in the tax rolls for all of Clark County.
Correct.
So the thing here is that you got to look at how many people live in Clark County, right? That are paying a portion to go and for taxes, right? So you got to look at where the dollars come from, and a lot of people are just they're detached. They don't have an interest. They don't have a dog in the hunt.
Correct.
So it's as some people would jokingly say, first world problems, right? JC, oh wow, they're going to develop a house behind you. Who doesn't have a house behind them?
Correct.
So the point here is that sometimes the neighbors, outside of these neighborhoods, they get a little numb to and so you're going to have a hard time convincing the tax rolls to support you,
right? When
you are a small microcosm of the larger pool. Right. So just that's an issue, okay? And I go through this with people all the time, which is, so as a taxpayer, do you want to be paying for someone's backyard? Right. And the answer is no.
No.
I don't have to tell you where.
Right.
But do you want to really be concerned about paying? If you live on the east side, do you really want to be concerned about doing garbage pickup on the west side? No. Yeah. You care about what's being done on the east side where you live.
Yes. And you know what? The reason why, again, I brought this up, because I saw the article and said, taxpayers are in the books for, this $6 million on legal fees. And I started reading it and I live in the Southwest, I live off of, Rainbow in the 215 in the Southwest. And I'm like, how is this my problem, right? Like you're saying, because it's not in my neighborhood. But if I was living close to where this location is at, then I will be a little bit more concerned, because I see it day to day, the issue. And especially the owners of those properties that paid to back into the golf course, they are very concerned, aren't they?
Yeah. So the next part is, when you're doing your due diligence,
correct.
When you're buying a property, we will get maps, we'll get disclosures, right? As agents, new home construction, they'll give you gaming maps, right? We'll get all these type of disclosures. You get a public offering statement for new home construction, and the issue here is that what gets disclosed is what's known at the time, right? So, hey, I don't know what's going to happen behind you, JC.
Right.
That's an honest answer. I don't know. Right. Well, what's it zoned? Well, it's zoned residential. Well,
correct.
Oh, okay. So houses. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you find out that when you look at codes, residential zoning is the most liberal of the zoning codes. So just about anything can go back behind your house if it's residential zoning, depending about offsets or what have you. But generally speaking, just about anything can conform to a residential zoning.
Right.
So, we have a lot of people, and this is a standard issue that you have in real estate, which is, you told me that nothing would be behind me, and then now there's a bar with lights behind you.
Correct.
And there are suits that happen, especially with builders. There are suits that happen every year where, hey, you failed to disclose something, and it was material. Well, again, the builder may not have known.
Right.
Okay. They disclose to the best of their ability, which is what's the law, which is you got to disclose to the best of your ability.
Right. And so I was going to ask you that, Rudy, because, I see right now a lot of new home developments. Usually they're happening in the outsides of in the outskirts of the city, right? If you go northwest, I think right now Tully Springs, right there by Aliante, they're developing. I think it's I don't remember what builder is building out there, right? But they have planned for 200-300 homes or 500 homes or whatever. But then after that, it's just vacant land. The builder cannot know what's going to be there in 10, 15 years.
That's correct,
right? So if
things change.
Right, plans change, and then also the city, because now we're talking about this $6 million bill that they have. If they turn around and sell that property to resell, and then all of a sudden they say, if we convert this zoning into commercial, we're probably going to get a little bit more dollars per the square. That could happen also, right?
Yeah, and just to go back, I think a good place to look. If you look out like on North Las Vegas,
yes.
and property that was built during a recession, right? 2009 through, let's say, 2012-ish. We had a lot of property. If you take a look, there is a lot of property that's residential, built right up against industrial.
Correct.
And so what happened was that at that time, if someone had a project, it was getting approved.
Yeah.
So then what happens is you have all these projects that are right up against industrially zoned property, or in close proximity to these industrially zoned property, with no buffer zone or a limited buffer zone in between, which should be a buffer. And so, because we were looking for business, right? As a valley. So if you look at North Las Vegas and you take a look and just look at an aerial map, and you'll see, hey, I've got 100,000 square feet of warehouse here, and then I got houses in real close proximity, and then you'll see gaps and pockets, and those are where deals could have been made, right, back during those times. But what I'm getting at is that things can change, right? Because obviously that's not ideal. Today, that plan would never go through, right? But during the recession, absolutely, because if you can get 200 homes in, and you can make that deal work, they were definitely going to go and approve that deal more times than not. So, but yeah, the north, like if you look at an aerial map of North Las Vegas, you will see that it'll be more prevalent that what we're talking about.
Yeah, and again, you know what? How many people have moved into North Las Vegas, right? How many people continue to move to North Las Vegas? And again, and not to fault of any real estate agents, but you guys just cannot tell what the future is going to be. I mean, I know that
to some degree.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, for somebody like yourself that is always wanting to find out what's happening, if you see a brand new development of houses coming up and then you see vacant land, you personally are going to do research and say, okay, what are the options of this parcel turning into, either commercial, industrial, landfill, whatever, right? It might be. So when we talked, and we said, about this Badlands thing, again, when you receive the deed, right? Or when you're signing for the purchase of the property, there's a deed on there. And there's a thing there that's called deed restrictions. Can you explain to the general public that's listening to you, what is a deed restriction and how can it affect me or help me in the future?
So, and this is a loaded question, by the way. So with deed restrictions, it's exactly what it sounds like, right? It's a restriction of use. Okay. So what happens is that, let's just say we have a residentially zoned property, and the deed restriction is that you can't do high density, or you can't go over, like for example, one Las Vegas, I think had had top out at 12 stories.
Correct.
Okay. The point is that that's the restriction. Okay. Right. And they do those for several reasons. Number one, they'll do those type of things because it's a requirement of the MAP, right? The city or the county or whoever the municipality comes in and says, "Hey, we want a restriction on," and they'll do the MAP approvals. So it's not necessarily a deed restriction, but it would be a condition of being able to get that project approved. Correct. So it won't show up on title, but it would be on your tentative map. Right? So where do we see stuff like that? Like streets that are narrower, right? Parklands, right? And maintenance of streets, right? Yeah. So if you want to do a master plan and you want to make it a little bit more dense and narrow the street a little bit, the city could turn around and say, okay, we'll allow you to do it, but you're going to maintain those as private streets instead. Okay. They can negotiate that. Right, so that's part of the map. Okay. A deed restriction on deed is obviously they want someone to see that. Correct. Okay. But the ones that are the problems, I think, right? Because the one that's on the deed is going to show up on your prelim. Right, and it's going to be recorded document. Right there. It's going to be an instrument, right? Yeah. It's going to be right there, plain as day. The ones that we're talking about, especially with golf courses, is that a lot of them, they're in the homeowner association records. Right. And so they're not easily found. No. And, you've got to read through 300-400 pages if there's one association, multiplied by 2 or 3, depending on where you are. Correct. And, state law requires that you have, as a buyer, 5 days to review and approve. Right. Which, that's a short period of time.
Yes, because
in my opinion, it's a short period of time.
Because you've said, right, sometimes the CC&Rs, if you have one HOA, it's, this big. And if you have a couple of HOAs, now you're multiplying that amount of documents times 3.
Yes.
And also the management company, they're like, hey, these are the CC&Rs. You guys figure it out, because they're not there really to be very helpful either. So
they don't have a duty to the agents, because they have a duty to
the homeowner. Right.
And the thing here is that state law says that the association has 21 days by law to answer any questions by the homeowner.
Right.
Well, if I'm only given 5 as a buyer, the state will tell you, and I've been recently told by the state, well, you can always cancel or get an extension. Well, no, that's not a great answer to give a real estate agent or a seller who's trying to close.
Yes.
That, give them 21 days to answer, hey, can you tell me if this is my maintenance or yours?
Correct.
I mean, sometimes, a lot of times or can I are there parking restrictions? You need 21 days to go and ask to
get an answer.
And so, and I know I'm trivializing this, but I'm trying to do that for a point, which is they don't have a duty to us agents, even though we both work out on the 3rd floor. We both over there on West Sahara.
Right.
So as professionals, we have to be preemptive. We have to think ahead. That's why you and I, the reason why we're having this conversation today is because, I'm going, hey, I'm looking for a deed restriction for legacy. I'm looking for because I'm writing a class for this.
Right.
And I go, nope, it's not there. Nope. I need the CC&Rs, right? And within 30 seconds, I go, oh, here it is. And I sent it back to you guys.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you and I started this conversation about it.
And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I said, you know what, I got to get Rudy in here, because that conversation that you and I had was so interesting on what you were very specific on what you were looking for, and that legacy golf course, that's a totally different, that's going to become another Badlands if we're not careful, right? Or it has already become
that one is that's a disclosure issue. Okay. I mean, it's it is an absolute disclosure issue.
Okay.
So that one, it's in the CC&Rs.
Okay.
It's got a limited deed restriction. So it sunsets after 50 years after the last house was built.
Okay.
So first off, when was the last house built?
Right. I was going to ask.
Right. Most people don't know.
No.
The other thing is that, so that restriction is a little vague because, okay, fine. Does that mean that the golf course has to be operational? Okay. And does that mean that I have to wait and it's a 50-year that sunsets in 2038? Do I have to wait until 2038 to put forward plans, or can I put plans in ahead of time and just not break ground until 2039? Oh. And so my point here is that it's going to come back, because just because it says that it sunsets in 50 years, that somebody, if they want to develop the property, they'll push the clock. They've already tried pushing the clock back in 2016, I believe it was, right, when they shut the course down. What's sad is that they do have golf back, but it could be, remember I'm saying could, in 2038, no permission needs to be asked, no nothing, just go through the normal zoning process, just like Badlands. And then just shut it down. But question here is that it's up to the association to determine what they disclose. Okay. Now, do they give you the resale package? Is it in the CC&Rs? Absolutely. But do people make it all the way down to the last page? No. And they probably put it all the way to the last page, so like that, hoping people don't read it. Now, Rudy, real quick, as we're talking about this, can you please provide your contact information for anybody that's listening out there that wants to get more information or really wants to understand your expertise as a real estate agent? Because I believe that you, as a real estate agent, having all of this knowledge, it could help a lot of people in realizing, hey, this is what the scenarios are, and now you have to make a better decision. Yeah, disclosures and kind of knowing what's important, especially knowing what's important to your client. There are a lot of clients that tell you today, "Nah, I don't care." Right. But they care tomorrow.
Exactly.
And so usually what I tell, I've been doing this for a while. JC, I know that you don't care about street parking rules, but I'm going to tell you that they have some funky street parking rules.
Right.
I'm going to tell you that. Why? Because if 2 years from now, all of a sudden you turn around and you're not happy, well, you're not going to be happy with me. I want to make sure that everything has been disclosed. So for me, business practice wise, I obviously I want to make sure that I disclose what's pertinent and what you've identified as being pertinent and important to you in making your decision.
Correct.
But if there's other items that I think that you should be aware of, that's why I'm a professional, right?
Right.
So for me, I'm telling you about this property. You may not care about it ever, but at least we had this discussion. And I find a lot of agents don't want to potentially blow up the deal.
Right.
Well, that's what a disclosure is.
Right.
A piece of information that may blow up the deal.
Right.
To keep you out of harm's way. Finish the sentence for
Yes,
me, right?
correct.
And so the point here is I've been doing this long enough. It's not that I like blowing up deals.
No, but
I want you to be aware of these are the items that we have, and this is maybe something that contends in the future when it comes time to sell the property.
You know what? Great example what you said right now. When you have somebody that says, "Hey, these are your parking restrictions," and as a buyer, I could be like, "Hey, right now I could care less," but
you have kids, you have cars.
Right. I was going to say that, but right now my 12-year-old is not even interested in driving, but 3 years from now they're interested in driving. We have to buy another car, and that could become a scenario, like you said. It's not that you want to blow up a deal, but it's just you want to have a clean conscience and saying, hey, I want to make sure that I disclose for you everything, so like that So again, what number they could contact you if they need to contact you?
Sure. Rudy Romano with Signature Real Estate Group. My phone number is 702-202-9489, and my email address is really easy. It's my name, rudy@rudyromano.com.
Perfect. And again, really having this conversation, I think is important because a lot of people that are buying right now, because of the way that the market is, they're so eager just to purchase something, but they're not literally taking the time to analyze what they're getting themselves into. And we want to prevent them, right? You want to prevent them. You want to make sure that when they purchase something 10, 15 years, and this is something that I say all the time. I've been doing this, real estate thing for over 20 years. I've had radio shows in the past, and I always say this, that issues with real estate don't occur or they don't happen the day after you close. They come out 10, 15, 20 years when you're going to refinance, when you're going to sell. That's when the real issues pop up if you didn't pay attention at the beginning, right?
Yeah, and I try to treat all of my clients the same way.
Right.
We talk about the three-legged stool for investments, right?
Correct.
So we have, the acquisition, we have the hold period, and then we have disposition. And a lot of agents may not have that conversation about when it comes time to dispose, when it comes time to sell, what do we do?
Right.
And when is that time? That's you and I were talking off camera about that earlier, which is we need to make sure that we are handling real estate like if you're a professional, you handle it all the way to the end.
Correct.
But yeah, it's the problems generally don't show up the next day. They usually show up down the line when there is little or no recourse.
Right.
Which is a problem.
It is a problem.
So
it is a problem, and that's why again it's extremely important for you guys to go ahead and contact agents that are professional, that are in the know, that are up to date with all the changes, because every day there's always a change in real estate. I mean, now we have this whole commission thing, and we could talk about that for hours, But again, for right now, I think with this Badlands fiasco is really a caution story, if I want to tell, caution tale for any future. Even though I know that right now, I don't think there's any development that has the authority to build any golf course. I think that's something that just gone away. I think the last golf course that was built was the Summit Club. Then after that, I don't think there's any in the books right now, right?
So water authorities came out. Water authority has been very restrictive in the last year or so. Commercial warehouse. I think it was October of last year. You need to refrigerate warehouse space as opposed to using swamp coolers that use water. To acclimate the warehouse space, which makes things very expensive.
Yes.
But the water district did come out and put a moratorium on any new golf course development. Where that's an issue here in the valley, because there are no new golf courses. Like you said, the Summit's a complete private course, and is one of the reasons why Bear's Best went private just recently.
Okay,
So that's Bear's Best is between the ridges in Summerlin on the south side, and to the north side is Red Rock Country Club.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And so they just went private because they want to make sure, again, back to guaranteeing what's going to happen behind you, is that they bought it. Some of the homeowners that are over there, they bought that golf course, and they closed it they made it a private course instead of a public course, so that in the event that the property operates at a loss, well, they have control over that property. It doesn't go defunct.
Yes.
And it's one way to manage what happens behind you. You and I, we joked about that. The best way to make sure that you guarantee what happens behind you is that you buy the piece of property behind you.
Right.
But that's literally the only sure thing that you have.
Right.
But where the water district's restriction is become a little bit of an issue is with the Silverstone Ranch closure from 2015. You know, the water district is in court documents in arbitration this past year said that they're not going to go and issue water rights or permission meter use to the current owner. And the question is that considered a new golf course if it ever came back, or is that an existing golf course? I think that the water district what's happening here is eerily similar to what happened with the city in Badlands.
Right.
However, the homeowner association in Silverstone Ranch is not pushing the issue with the water district. They say that's the golf course owner's issue. Sell the golf course to somebody who wants to operate. It's like, well, wait a minute. If there's no water, right, you got to kind of push the issue a little bit.
Correct.
And no one's pushing the issue.
Right.
So,
and I was going to say that I've never been to a golf course, and I don't golf much, but I've never been to a golf course that it's all just, yellow. Usually they're pretty green, and they have to have some kind of water. And if the water district is restricting the amount of water that they're receiving or anything, it doesn't matter who buys the golf course because it's not going to be useful as a golf course, right?
Right. And that's where, with like Silverstone, for example, that's a public course. The homeowners had an opportunity to, they were negotiating at one time back in 2019 and 2020 with the golf course owner to take over 18 of the 27 holes and then put buffer zones, landscape buffer zones between 50 to 100 feet behind the 9 that would be closed where they would have development. That was ahead of any restrictions from the water district. It's funny because those homeowners, they complain that property values were diminished, and I live out that way, so full disclosure. But the issue here, and I call it the Silverstone Ranch paradox, which is they complain that their property values have been diminished because of the closed golf course, a course that's been reverted to dirt.
Right.
But the homeowner association, and they've had an opportunity to own it. They have to vote on it. Okay. But the association has turned around and said that it would be quote unquote catastrophic without giving an explanation of what would be catastrophic for owning it. Right. And that they would rather have the property be perpetual dirt. It's like, well, wait a minute. You just said that the property value was diminished because of it being dirt, but you want it in perpetuity to be dirt? Right. That doesn't equate.
No, but wouldn't it make more sense for them to turn that land around and have some kind of a development? I mean, we're not talking about low housing development, but
that's never been on the slate there.
Right, and what I'm saying is that the prices around there, they're not cheap. I mean, let's be honest, right? If you start putting in a brand new development there, you could do you could do a pretty good project in there and actually help raise the value of the existing homes.
So I've been on the board in Silverstone Ranch for several times. I was on the board in 15 when and 16 when the course was closed. I was on the board again when at the end of 2019 the previous board had we had assumed, the board that I would belong to in 2020 assumed mediation with the golf course owner to find a solution. The solution that we were about to put forth, but COVID hit. Right. Was and by the way, no settlement, no mediated settlement is perfect.
Right, but, of course.
But what happened was that we worked out a tentative plan, resolution the homeowners would vote on that would give 18 of the 27 holes of the golf course to the association. So approximately 200 acres, which would, at the time in 2020, was valued at about $50 to $60 million in land.
Right.
Okay. And then remember what we talked about ownership, right?
Yeah.
The best way to guarantee what's behind you is by owning it.
Right.
And then the other 70 acres, 50 of which would have been developed, they were going to be 50 to 100 foot buffer zones that are landscaped by the developer, of which the developers were named. They were large name companies here, plus $10 million in cash.
Wow.
So, you're talking about $50-60 million deal. I don't know too many associations that have that opportunity.
Right.
But the homeowners turned around and they basically said, nope, we'd rather have dirt, the voting populace that are there.
Jeez.
Which is interesting because they said we don't want sellouts. And it's like, wait a minute, if you get a vote,
He's not a sellout.
you're not a sellout. So I've been called every dirty name.
Right.
And, Rudy, it's fine as long as Rudy doesn't want development behind him. I go, develop behind me. If you're going to tell me that I'm going to have walking trails behind my house, I'm more likely to use walking trails with my bad shoulders. I don't play much golf anymore.
Right.
But I'll use those walking trails and have my kids riding their bikes out on those trails.
Right.
Yeah, I have no problem. They go, well, we don't believe you. It's like, then you're on the board. Then put him behind me.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
And again, like you said, right, you could go buy a brand new home out in, I don't know, Mountain's Edge. You could go out and buy a house in North Las Vegas or even, Northwest Las Vegas, and you have no idea what's going to be in the piece of dirt behind you. And it could be, walking trails. It could be, I don't know, an unloading dock from Amazon. I mean, last time I was talking to the other guys that usually we do the radio show with, and I drove down to, Mesquite because we have an office in Mesquite, and it had been years since I driven past North Las Vegas by the Speedway. Yeah. And then just get out of, just once I left there, Apex. The amount of warehouses spaces that have gone up there, it's incredible. So I think at one point, right next to the warehouse space, there kind of have to be homes developed, right?
That goes back to what I was talking about earlier, which is take a look at an aerial map of North Las Vegas, and you will see
pockets.
You'll see those pockets, like you'll have Republic Services that's right there. You'll have a golf course that's right here. You'll have a warehouse. You'll have a residential community of 300 homes. It was a hot, and that's stuff that was developed during that recession, because just to kind of get everything kind of keep things kind of moving to some degree. But we don't have a lot of urban sprawl that some of the other towns across the country may have. But people have to realize Clark County, 88% of the property is not owned. No, is federally owned.
Yeah, and that's
crazy because you're looking out your window right here, and you go, wait a minute, I got dirt everywhere, and it's like, yeah, but we don't own it. We have not just the natural constraints of water and the mountains to the west, but we don't own the property, so we can't make those decisions. The federal government does.
And that's the other thing that I did read, that they have requesting the city of the Las Vegas Valley has requested from BLM to release 300,000 acres to purchase, because we have land like right behind my property. The BLM owns that land. Actually, no, it's not the BLM. It's the FAA that owns that land, because I'm right in the flight path. And, we're talking about, 10, 12, 15 acres that are sitting there. Yep. And I'm like, who? And then when I started doing research, I'm like, I wonder who owns that land. And I come to realize that it was the FAA that purchased that land.
So what you're referring to, so like coming down around the Durango curve. So if you look at one of those land core maps from 15 years ago, there was no housing down that stretch. And so what you're talking about is the CMA, is the flight overpath. So what happens is that they were originated, I believe, in the 70s. Airlines have become their engines have become quieter, and so since they've become quieter, they said, hey, we should be able to lift some of the restrictions that prevent housing to be put along the 215 on that side of town. I believe even the city and the county were actually able to, during that recession period, I remember I was at a meeting at one of the hotels, I want to say it was Suncoast, that they were announcing that they were going to be selling some parks for development that were in the flight path because they needed the money. They couldn't afford to maintain all that greenery, but they also, with the lifting of the restrictions, these are viable pieces. Why? They're right next to a park, which makes them valuable.
Of course.
So they have great 215 access, and they have parkland, and they have all the commercial that's built up. Usually the way development works is that you build the houses and the commercial follows based upon what the neighborhood's going to be able to withstand. This was the other way around. That's why you saw it went away real quick, all that available land. But yeah, the flight path is an interesting one. And if you're aware, down in Henderson, they're having a problem with the flight path because they opened up those, I think they opened up 2 strips. And the flight path now goes. The host homeowners claim they were told that it was going to go one way,
right? And
then when they opened them, they went the other way, right over their houses. So every 2 minutes, they have a plane coming right over. And when I say right over their house, I mean right over their house. So, we live in a valley where we have a couple of airports. We have the Air Force here. We have the base. But so we hear airplanes all the time,
right?
But I think it's if you have planes landed.
It's a different story.
That's absolutely different story.
Trust me, I live right there, like I said, in the Southwest, and when I'm usually fine when the normal airplanes, commercial. I mean, usually you see the Virgin Atlantic at 4 p.m. That thing is massive, but when my house really shakes is when those F-18s take off from McCarran. I mean, well now Harry Reid. Sorry,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine, with the Henderson Executive Airport, right? With all these raiders coming in, they all have private jets. All of a sudden, the amount of air traffic that came in is huge, and there were houses built there before even. They used to have Cessnas flying in there. Now they have all kinds of jets coming in, and those jets are not getting smaller.
No. They're landing more often.
They're landing more often.
So every time we get a little bigger, you have another jet coming into town.
Correct.
So, but yeah, it's like I said, we're a big town. People don't realize, but yeah, we do have our constraints. They're just not noticeable to the public. But for us in the business, we know that we have, we do have constraints here.
Right.
On the BLM property, though, people can put up. They could nominate a parcel.
Okay.
From the BLM. It's a process. They have to pay for what, in a sense, is an appraisal for the property. It comes out. If they buy it, they get refunded. They get applied. No, refunded. They get applied to their purchase, the appraisal.
Right.
But you have to go out there with the paddle. And
it's an option.
So the thing here is that you could have competition on the parcel that you want. Where we've had problems in the past is that in my developer days, I worked for a lot of the large national builders. They pretty much print their own money. But when you can't buy a Madera Canyon, you can't buy some of these larger pieces without having a group of builders going in together. That's a sign that you've got a little bit of an issue, right? Because you can't make the deal unless I have 2 or 3 large national pockets to make it. And so you're gonna keep seeing that, as we release large pieces, you're gonna see builders come in and still do that same game, and it's not going to go. You're not going to see prices come down as a result.
And that's the other thing that we've been talking about for the longest time here is, people are still waiting for the prices to come down and the bubble to burst. And I tell people, I say, look, you know what? You had that mentality, especially the buyers. You had that mentality when COVID hit. Interest rates were 3.5%, 4% down. The prices were $200,000, $300,000 below, and you still had the idea that I'm going to wait till the interest rate to come down, and I'm going to wait for the houses to come down, and they never had. Now, what you're talking about when they release big parcels of properties out there, and multiple builders get together to buy that. It brings the question, and now I understand why at Sky Canyon you have like 5 different builders because they bought a big chunk of land out there, right?
Yeah, so and I was with Pulte at the time when that was originally taken down.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Sky Canyon. I believe the Southern Highland, the guys that developed Southern Highlands are up there now. And then when the market crashed in the recession, they came in and they redeveloped their plan, which was we're going to make bigger home sites. We're going to slow down the pace. We're going to make sure we introduce more parks.
Right.
And that seems to work. But again, do I have clients? I have a client that they were supposed to have 1 stories behind them. They ended up with
3
with apartments behind them across. So you don't have. Again, back to like I said, the only way you can guarantee what gets put in behind you is you own it.
Right.
So, so even though that the plan was to do 1 stories to 1 stories over this paseo, plans change.
Right.
But the when it comes to a lot of these big developments, the average Joe isn't going to be able to go and do those.
No.
So, when they nominate, and these pieces are usually pretty large pieces, the average Joe is not going to go and carve off 1,000 acres.
No, because I've seen from 500 to 700 acres released at a time, and that the builders are like, yeah, we could fit like about 1,500 homes there, depending, right? If you want to go high density, you want to go either bigger homes, then obviously less, but the chunks of land that the BLM is sawing off, they're not 1 acre. They're not going to sell 1 acre only.
There are pieces.
Okay.
But again, are you going to have competition for those?
Oh,
so the answer is yeah. But those are far and few between. Usually they're in larger chunks, and like you just said, if the average per acre, let's just say for argument's sake, just set a number at $400,000 an acre, and you're doing 50 acres. The average person's not coming in to go do that deal.
No.
You're going to have somebody that's got a long-term plan in place to be able to do that.
Right.
And that's most of the builders. They're always looking about 3 years out. They're looking 3 years out, and that's where once they get past 3 years, they sit there and say, well, wait a minute, like, what happens if market changes?
Right. And
market can change on a dime in Las Vegas.
Yeah, we know that.
and back to what you were talking about with price drops. A lot of people do remember the recession.
Correct.
And they go, oh, we'll wait for prices to drop. And it's like, you understand that we had a financial crisis. And it wasn't just us. Other countries had meltdowns as well.
Right.
So that was a financial crisis. It wasn't because there wasn't demand. There was plenty of demand for housing.
Correct.
Okay. But that was a financial issue. That was something that was a systemic problem that had nothing to do with supply and demand. It had to deal with how money flows.
Right.
And I don't think it will ever happen in my lifetime or yours that you'll see another financial meltdown.
It's funny that you mentioned that, but we talked about this not so long ago. And I said, I've been living in Vegas for 25 years now. I've seen prices drop literally in Vegas for 3 reasons, and 3 reasons only. The first one was after 9/11.
Yeah.
Prices dropped because that was, that was a national thing that happened. And, unfortunately, we recognized that we could not just sustain our city based on only hospitality. And that's where the whole shift came over. And now we have, major league sports here, and we have all kinds of development. The second one was the crash of 2008, right? And then the third one was COVID, but that one dropped for a little bit, and then it just spiked up. So, the same thing happened with the interest rates. Interest rates dropped after September 11, after 2008, and after COVID. And then after that, I don't see it coming. With all these studios coming, with all the sports coming, with all the development that we're having, and I know that we could sit here another 3 hours just talking about all the future things that you know they're going to come. I don't see it with the train being developed. I don't see the prices of the homes dropping.
So there's a saying in real estate, which is you marry the property and you date the rate.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
And the point is that you find the piece of property. It's like love, right?
Right.
It's when you're not looking for it, you find it, right? So you're looking for a house, and the house that you always wanted comes on the market. Well, the timing isn't right? Finances aren't, but you never know when that property is going to come back on the market. Well, guess what? We're going to find a way to go and make it work now.
Correct.
Right? Because if you wait, it could be another 20 years or more or never, right?
Right.
So the point here is that No, prices won't come down. I think that you see a lot of fatigue by buyers. They've been waiting. They've been told interest rates are coming down, and they don't.
Right.
And if they do, they come down only a small fraction. And what they don't see is the fine print, which is they have to have a very high credit score. So they go, wait a minute, I don't qualify for any of those rates. Well, whatever, right? They get frustrated. So one thing about the consumer is that once the consumer realizes the rates are, if they go down, we'll refinance. If they go up, we look like a champ.
Exactly.
And I've got clients when the rate went to 6, they were like, they were like, I don't know.
Yes.
Or they was at 5. They go, I don't know. I'm already at 3. Why would I want to go to 5? And then now it's 6 or 7.
Right.
And it's like, you're like rock stars. You're like, my rate's the better rate out of everyone you guys. And so, like I said, the consumers, I think, are the fatigue factor is what is a problem. And yes, I'm a, not just because of my profession,
right?
Marry the property, date the rate,
right?
And because life is, you never know how much time you've got.
Yes,
so,
that is true.
I hate to say it that way, but you never know. Enjoy life while you can.
Yes, and you know what? That's a great point, because I mean, obviously you've been doing this for a long time, and I tell everybody, I said, if you take the average interest rate over 30 years, a normal interest rate is between 6.5 and 7. I mean, that's a healthy interest rate. It's not a bad interest rate. I remember when my parents bought their house in 1989 in California, my dad bought his house for 14%. And
that was a good rate.
And that was a great rate, right? Exactly. The problem is that we got used to having very low rates because of the same scenario. September 11, the financial crash, COVID, that got us used to having very low rates. But, a normal rate is 7%. I usually tell people, if you're thinking of buying, you need to execute today if you find a house that you could afford, because the payment is what makes the factor, right?
So, and that's where like the experienced agents, that's with working with an experienced agent, experienced lender. That's where that comes in.
Correct.
There's so many people that I come across as agents and as potential clients. They go, I got to sell a house to be able to buy a house. You understand that plan can make you homeless.
Correct.
Right? I mean, I have to spell it out and be that blunt, which is that you could be homeless.
Right.
Oh, well, simultaneous close. No, you understand how easy that is to say compared to do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We'll lease it back. What makes you think that they don't need to be in the house? Your buyers.
That is true.
What happens if they're going for the school? What what are we doing, right? You can't always rely upon, and for years, the housing market in Vegas has, if you build it, they will come was one of the sayings that we used to have, when I worked for the builders, because a lot of the houses that we didn't have buyers lined up.
No.
Now they do. They won't really start those as spec unless they're trying to make a number. But overall, you need to make sure that you sit down with somebody and have that discussion. And by the way, you're going to have two types of people. You're going to have a person who absolutely has zero clue and they really need your assistance.
Correct.
Okay, and that's where obviously experience comes in,
right?
Which is it's like, tell me what you need. Okay, just well, I sliced it one way.
Right.
I could slice it a bunch of different ways, but like, see how easy I can just put in one scenario for you.
Correct.
Now let's have a conversation. Does this fit? This steps 1, 2, 3, 4 fit, but 5 and 6 don't. Okay, let's put another. And it's like, okay. So I think that you kind of hit on this thing with the NAR and the settlement. We've had a lot of agents not renew their licenses at the association. I'm also an faculty instructor at the Las Vegas Association of Realtors. Right. We've had a lot of agents that have not renewed, but we've also had a lot of new agents. And I think that in any type of profession, you have those that for whatever reason leave. Right. It's very simple to say, well, they couldn't cut it. Well, maybe not, but a lot of people, they've done their time and it's time to retire.
Yes.
Let's go. But we do have a fresh group that come in every year. And this year in particular, we still have a fresh group, even though we've had a lot of veterans leave. But the veterans that are still working, overall, I think that we'll do a pretty good job in the next couple of years, making sure that buyers and sellers alike are definitely taken care of, because we're having these conversations like what you and I are doing.
No, and I think honestly, Rudy, I would love to extend the invitation for us to come in and talk about that topic as well. I know that you are a instructor for the Association of Realtors, which is phenomenal. And again, you know what? If you guys want to contact Rudy, you're not just getting a seasoned real estate agent, you're getting somebody that's professional, that's also involved in teaching other agents on how to become professionals. But there's one word that you said when you were talking, instead of you saying, if you're going to come in for my help, you said, I'm going to come in, you're going to come in and I'm going to assist you. Because I don't believe that, if I have an agent saying, hey, come here, I could help you with this, it doesn't make sense, right? I mean, help is when, I need to change my tire and you're going to come and help me change my tire. But as a professional, you're assisting your buyers and sellers to make the right decisions.
Yeah, I mean, the differentiation there is that, like I said, I have my experience is pretty wide.
Yes.
Okay? Some of my contemporaries, they've only done one or two things. I've been very lucky to do a lot of different things for a lot of different people.
Right.
And so, you tell me what you need, as opposed to, I don't like being an order taker. Right. Right.
Right.
My skill set's not. If you just need me to go and just do paperwork, okay, fine. But really, the reason why I like this profession is, again, I get to assist people.
Right.
About 80% of my business, both commercial and residential, are from out-of-towners. So I have to definitely assist,
right?
Because I'm their eyes and ears here on the ground.
Correct.
And my business is based around professionals, usually executives. I'm not pulling you away from work, from family, from home, if you're from out of town, unless I know that we have a deal that we can make.
Right.
And I'm not looking to waste, JC, I'm not looking to waste your time. I'm not looking to waste mine. Again, how can I assist you?
Right.
Right? So, like you said, it's pretty obvious when someone needs help with a tire.
Yes, exactly.
But if you're just walking around the car, what can I assist you with? I have no idea. You have to tell me.
Right.
Because it may not be that obvious.
That. And you know what? Again, I love that. It's interesting when you talk to people, the verbiage that they use and how professional they are. And obviously, you're a very professional. I mean, we've had many conversations outside of the air about different topics. And I just keep on saying, oh my God, we could definitely create a series about this. So, Rudy, one more time, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, so you could assist them in their purchase or their sale of their real estate property. Sure. What number they could reach you at, and what's your contact info?
Yeah, so Rudy Romano with Signature Real Estate Group. My cell number is 702-202-9489, and my email address is my name, rudy@rudyromano.com.
Perfect. Well, Rudy, you know what? It's time for us to go ahead and wrap it up. Do you have any final words for the audience?
Guys, I mean, I hate to tell you that you need to read, but you don't just need to read. You need to ask questions.
Yes.
Okay? And, I'm not going to get into the philosophical, there is no dumb question. But there really is no dumb question.
No.
Okay? And there's only dumb answers, right?
Yes.
So, but you got to read. You got to ask. And if it's important to you, make a point of it.
Yes.
And don't just assume. Okay? The whole saying about assuming, right? But just make sure that you're looking at this and you're not rushing in. When it comes to real estate, you got to make sure that you are educate yourself. And if you're not educated in it, make sure you have someone assisting you with that property, with that project that actually has the expertise to be able to get you across the finish line.
Perfect. Well, it's funny because I used to have a radio guest that used to sit here and says, you know what, the saying that there's no dumb questions, he said, there's not dumb questions, they're just dummies that don't ask the question, right?
That's true too.
And I thought it was the greatest comment because, if you have a question, ask it. Because, I am ignorant in a lot of other things that have nothing to do with the day-to-day things of my stuff, right? So I tell people, I say, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Test your agent. They should be able to give you the answers when they have them. And if they don't have them, they should be able to say, you know what, I don't know about this. Let me go figure it out. But I know that you have all the answers.
Yeah, well, I don't have them all. I appreciate that. But to your point, though, homes, Americans, their largest investment is their home.
Agreed.
Okay? I deal with commercial. I deal with executives as well, which they've got employees. They've got businesses. They've got people relying upon them. You got to make sure that you're asking the questions. And if I'm dealing with a client that's not asking the questions, that's a red flag to me.
Correct.
Because you then have to go and cover all your bases and equally. So one of the things I see as an issue is procrastination.
Yes.
So, if you and I were entering a deal today and we have 10 days to go through it, no. Today is the day we're going to go through everything I possibly can go through with you, because I don't know what's going to come up in the next 9 days.
Correct.
Something always comes up.
Always.
So, like I said, you just need to make sure that you're working hard and you're taking care of the people that are taking care of you.
Perfect. And again, Rudy, one more time, your phone number, please, and a little bit slower, because I know you have that New York swag, so you just roll through it. So go ahead.
Rudy Romano, Signature Real Estate Group, 702-202-9489.
Perfect.
And my email is my name, rudy@rudyromano.com.
Perfect. Well, I am JC Castillo. I am here at Drake's Title. My phone number is 702-416-4302. Again, if you like the program, please let us know. If you didn't like it, also let us know, because we want to know what's going on. But you know what? I would love to extend my my invite to Rudy to have him come out here whenever it's possible to give us more insight. There's a lot of information out there that we require everybody to please pay attention, read the articles, get to know the people, ask questions. Call Rudy if you have any questions about anything. He's there to go ahead and answer your questions, and I'm pretty sure that he'll be more than willing to answer any of your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. It is a little hot, so please stay hydrated, and I will see you tomorrow.